March 13th, 2024, 10:12 p.m. The power flickered once, twice before dying completely. I cursed under my breath, fumbling for my phone in the sudden darkness. The screen illuminated my cramped apartment, the single room a messy collage of textbooks, takeout containers, and a perpetually unmade bed. It wasn't much, but it was mine, in this city that felt increasingly hostile. The silence that followed the power outage was thick, broken only by the distant wail of a siren and the rhythmic drumming of rain against my window. This city, nestled between a churning river and a perpetually gloomy mountain range, seemed to specialize in these sudden power cuts during storms. Most of the time, it was a minor inconvenience. Tonight, however, it felt different. Unease prickled at the back of my neck. It wasn't just the darkness. A strange quiet had settled outside, the usual symphony of honking cars and distant chatter replaced by an unsettling stillness. I grabbed my phone, the flashlight app casting a pale beam that cut through the gloom. Deciding to investigate the unsettling silence, I stepped out of my apartment and into the hallway. The old building, once a grand structure with ornate moldings and high ceilings, now reeked of dampness and neglect. The dim emergency lights offered little illumination, casting long, distorted shadows that danced on the peeling wallpaper. As I descended the creaking stairs, a draft of cold air snaked around my ankles, raising goosebumps on my skin. Reaching the lobby, I hesitated. The heavy oak door leading to the street felt ominous in the darkness. Against my better judgment, a morbid curiosity propelled me forward. I turned the rusted knob, the sound grating against the silence. Pushing the door open, a wave of icy rain and the metallic tang of something I couldn't quite identify washed over me. The street was a chaotic mess. Trash canisters had been toppled over, their contents, a disgusting mixture of food scraps and plastic wrappers, swirling in the churning water. Broken branches littered the sidewalk, victims of the wind's fury, but most unnerving was the complete absence of people or vehicles. The city, usually a hive of activity at this hour, was eerily deserted. My phone flashlight beam swept down the rain-slicked street. It was then I saw it. A single figure, cloaked in a dark hooded robe, standing perfectly still at the far end of the deserted block. My breath caught in my throat. Even from this distance, I could sense a malevolent aura emanating from the figure. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. There was no response. The figure remained motionless, a stark silhouette against the flickering streetlights on the next avenue. An inexplicable terror gripped me. Instinct screamed at me to turn back, to run and barricade myself in my apartment. But a morbid fascination held me rooted to the spot. Slowly, taking deliberate steps, I approached the figure. The closer I got, the more unnatural its stillness seemed. It wasn't a natural posture, more like a statue carved from shadow. As I reached the halfway point down the block, a loud bang echoed from somewhere behind me. I whirled around, heart hammering against my ribs. Another cloaked figure stood at the entrance of the alley across the street. This one raised a gloved hand and gestured towards me, beckoning me closer. Panic surged through me. Two figures flanking me, both radiating an unsettling aura. I had to get out of here. Turning back, I sprinted towards the heavy oak door, adrenaline fueling my flight. I reached the building, fumbling with the rusted handle. Just as I flung the door open, a third figure materialized at the end of the hallway. This one was different. The hood was down, revealing a face devoid of any human features. All I saw was a smooth, hairless surface, devoid of eyes, nose, or mouth. It held out a long, skeletal hand, its elongated claws dripping with a viscous black liquid. I slammed the door shut, throwing all my weight against it. The heavy oak seemed to shudder under the impact. I fumbled for the deadbolt, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Behind the door, I heard a cacophony of sounds, scratching, banging, inhuman shrieking. My apartment seemed to shrink around me, the walls closing in. I backed away from the door, collapsing onto my bed. Tears streamed down my face, a mixture of terror and helplessness. What was happening to this city? The cacophony outside my door continued for what felt like an eternity. Time seemed to warp and twist, each deafening bang and inhuman screech stretching into an agonizing minute. My breaths came in ragged gasps, my body trembling uncontrollably. Just as I thought I could take no more, the noise abruptly stopped. An unnerving silence descended, broken only by the drumming of rain against my window. Huddled on the bed, I strained to hear any sound from outside. Was it over? Had the things left? Fear kept me rooted to the spot for what felt like hours. Finally, a sliver of rationality pierced through the fog of terror. I had to check. I had to know. Creeping towards the door, I pressed my ear against the cold wood. Silence. Taking a deep breath, I slowly turned the deadbolt. The hallway was dark, the emergency lights having sputtered out during my ordeal. My phone flashlight beam cut through the gloom, revealing no sign of the figures. Relief washed over me, a wave so powerful it almost made my legs buckle. But something wasn't right. The air felt charged with a strange energy, a prickling sensation that sent shivers down my spine. Tentatively, I stepped out into the hallway. The silence in the building was absolute, broken only by the faint drip of water from a leaky pipe somewhere above. The power outage seemed to have plunged the entire building into darkness. Taking a deep breath, I decided to make my way back to my apartment. Each creak of the floorboards under my feet echoed in the oppressive silence, making my heart jump. Finally, I reached my door. Just as I went to turn the knob, a cold gust of wind blew past me, extinguishing my phone flashlight. I yelped, momentarily blinded by the sudden darkness. Scrambling in the dark, I fumbled for my phone, my fingers slick with sweat. The moment the light flickered back on, I let out a strangled scream. The hallway was no longer empty. A single figure stood at the far end, its dark form silhouetted against the faint glow from the streetlight filtering through a cracked window. This one was different. It was taller, broader, and the air around it shimmered with an unnatural light. Its head was tilted downwards, obscured by the hood, but I could sense its gaze fixed on me. A feeling of dread, cold and suffocating, washed over me. This wasn't one of the faceless figures from before. This was something else entirely. "Who are you?" I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. The figure remained silent, its presence radiating an oppressive silence. Slowly, it raised its head. Even in the dim light, I could see the outline of a skeletal face, a malicious grin splitting its skull-like visage. Two glowing red orbs pulsed where its eyes should have been, boring into me with an intensity that stole my breath. "You shouldn't be here," it rasped, its voice a dry, inhuman whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "What's happening?" I stammered, my voice barely audible. "Where is everyone?" The figure tilted its head, a chilling cackle erupting from its skeletal throat. The sound echoed through the hallway, bouncing off the walls, a symphony of pure terror. "The veil has thinned," it rasped, its voice dripping with malice. "The others have returned, and this city—" It gestured outwards with a skeletal hand. "This city belongs to them now." Terror choked my voice. The others, what veil? My mind reeled, struggling to comprehend the horrifying words. "But why?" I managed to gasp. "Because you invited them," the figure hissed, its voice laced with a chilling amusement. "Your insatiable greed, your endless hunger for power, it has opened the door." My mind raced, searching for any shred of meaning in its cryptic words. What greed? What power? But before I could form a question, the figure lunged forward. I screamed, scrambling back, my back hitting the wall. The creature was upon me in a flash, its skeletal hand reaching out to grab me. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the inevitable. But it never came. Instead, a loud, booming voice echoed through the hallway, shaking the very foundation of the building. "Leave her," the voice commanded. It was deep, powerful, and resonated with an otherworldly authority.